Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Way podcast. I'm Zenya and I am here with
Jesse.
Jesse.
Do you know that's our new intro? Every time we do that, we say like, welcome back to The Way. We all have to go like this.
When was that a thing?
Because look, that's a W. You see? Look, try it. Welcome back to The Way.
Yeah, welcome back to The Way. Today, we are going to be talking about social media, which is kind of funny because you're listening to this or watching this
on social media.
Huge
day.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about our experiences with social media, I guess our generation, because we are kind of the Gen Z social media generation. We've grown up with it, and just talking about our experiences and how it's impacted our faith. So Are you ready, Jesse?
Well, to start off with, I think we should hear what the general public think.
Yeah.
So let's go to the streets.
How has social media impacted your faith? I think negatively, you see what the good side of faith looks like. You never see like the wrestle. You only see what like life looks like when you're on the stage. So like a worship leader or a pastor, you see the good side, and you don't see what really goes on behind the scenes and the wrestle you have with the Lord. And then positively, I mean, you get to see faith all across the world. And so being connected with so many different people, it's something that like most Christians didn't have back in the day. And now I get to be connected with people all over the world. And so being able to be stirred by the faith of others that I see through social media and desire to grow because I watched the video. Yeah, negative and positive.
You know, there's some good reels out there.
Like The Way?
The Way, let's go. Yeah, I think it has like inspired me. There's like honestly some really good creators out there who are like creating content that like helps you to stop during the day and actually like help you reflect on your day and what's happening in your life and how you can invite Jesus into your day. I think those have been really helpful.
It can be a double-edged sword for sure. It can cut towards the enemy, but it can also be a weakness towards Christians too. I think in this day and age, everything is so accessible and honestly, it can be so addicting, right? There's times where I just have to completely take social media off my phone, right? Because it's leading to stumbling patterns or whatever it be. And I think, man, when Jesus says, like, if it's your hand that makes you sin, cut it off. And sometimes that's social media, but sometimes social media is also the place where people are getting saved. So it's all in that heart posture towards the Lord.
You know, those stop scrolling vibes, you know? They're great sometimes. They stop me.
Stop scrolling.
Yeah.
And I let Jesus in.
Sometimes I hate it, sometimes I love it. How it's impacting my faith, I think I love like short reels or like clips from sermons or something that's just like just a cut in the heart where you're almost like not expecting it. But as a general, I'm not sure, I would say.
It has negatively impacted it in the way that I got so caught up in comparison that I actually felt like God, and it's also so much of a distraction for me that I felt like God actually told me to delete it for several years.
Social media was really influential on me in a negative way, and like I would like lean into comparison and lean into like constantly like comparing myself to the people, like my friends and even celebrities and people who are famous. But now that I have a much healthier view of social media with my relationship with God, it's been honestly such an incredible and powerful tool for connection and connecting with other believers, connecting with people who are interested in learning more about faith, and just displaying my faith online has become so much easier with social media, and it's just a really great platform to communicate Christ through.
If I want to see more of Christ on my social media, I will find more of Christ on my social media. And if I want to have a broader faith and see more of the Lord, that's something I will search for and something I will dig for.
When you hear the voice of the Lord, you hear him calling you to closer intimacy with him, and you say no, like later, I'll spend time with you later. Like what if he never like came back to say, hey Julia, like hang out with me, come spend time with me? And I said, oh my gosh, like I never want it to come to a point where I like dismiss the Lord and then he never comes back to like call him on my name and like want to spend time with me. He's more important than Instagram.
I feel like other people might have done this, so I don't actually feel shame saying it. But when I was younger, I really wanted a Facebook because like all my family were on it. And then, you know, like secondary school, like your friends were on Facebook and you're like, why am I left out? I don't have a Facebook. So I asked my mum, can I make a Facebook? Obviously she said no, but I did it anyway. I made a
Wow.
Facebook behind her back.
Have you repented of that?
Lord, I'm sorry. I repent now
Okay,
in this
there it is.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a Facebook behind her back. And then she found out like 2 years later and she just laughed and she was like, you thought you could keep it a secret?
Wow.
That's crazy.
Do you know what? I think my first experience with social media was playing the game Subway Surfers.
Oh my gosh.
And like wanting to see like where your friends at in terms of like school.
Yeah.
Like video games, you had to connect your Facebook account to like keep up with your friends.
That's so true.
So I remember creating a Facebook account just to log into Clash of Clans.
Oh my
all that
gosh,
kind of
Clash
thing.
of Clans.
I didn't use it for social media.
Do you
I
remember
used
Flappy
it for
Bird?
that.
Do you remember Flappy Bird?
I never used to play it.
No. Okay, Flappy Bird was my
I was
my
a
thing.
Clash Royale kid.
Come on.
All the way.
Do you
All
know
the
what
way.
actually? Instead of Facebook, I'd actually say YouTube. I don't know if people actually can like talk about YouTube as social media because I feel like YouTube's just a thing. But I remember like watching YouTube to learn how to play games. So like I would watch people play like The Sims, like Let's Play The Sims 3. And then I would learn like all the hacks and stuff. And then when I would go play The Sims, then I was just good.
And
Because I just basically cheated.
you cheated.
Basically.
You're a hacker.
No, because
Oh, yeah,
like...
because the free codes online.
Yeah.
You can find them on YouTube. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to jailbreak my phone when I was like 13 to get like free stuff on games. Anyway, we're not talking about video games. We're talking about social media.
But social media helped us do those type of things.
It's true.
Like even we were having a conversation and you were saying like you can learn about cameras, you can learn about any skills that you want to learn through like YouTube. Like
It's
social
true.
media has made things so accessible, whereas before like that was not a thing. And I feel like now growing up, all the other generations after us, they'll only know like getting information quick through Google or through
It's true.
YouTube and stuff. So it's made everything so accessible.
It is true. Everything's so. I mean, I didn't go to uni, and I just learned most of my skills from YouTube. you know.
That's crazy.
But what would you say is the first time you used social media for like the social element rather than just like for video games?
I remember BBM. I'm going to consider that
You
social
remember
media.
BBM?
Yeah, I had a BBM, but I didn't have a
old are you?
BlackBerry. I'm 21. BBM. Why is that suspicious?
I never had BBM. I'm only 2 years younger.
That's crazy. Maybe it's not a Brighton thing. Maybe it's
London
a London
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I remember having BBM. It was basically like WhatsApp before WhatsApp. And like we would message each other after school. This was in primary school. That's crazy. And be like, hey guys, like, what did you think of this game we played in school? Just something crazy. And then like you'd be able to be friends with people that went to the neighboring schools because like you couldn't see them
Wow.
at school. But then
Yeah, of
after
course.
school, everyone's on BBM. So then you just message each other. So I think that'd be my first experience. But BBM was weird because like people would send messages to their crush on BBM or like message someone and be like, my friend likes you. Like
Whoa.
BBM was just
That's
crazy.
I think my first experience with social media was Club Penguin.
Oh
Personally.
my God. No, mini clip. That's
we
crazy.
popped on, you know, you saw your friends, you like went and did like that like pizza game together, you chatted through with your friends. I think that was where I got my first
Gosh.
girlfriend as well.
On Club
Yeah. I don't think she was aware that she was my girlfriend though. I kind of followed her around the map a little bit and, you know, danced together like once and she had my heart, you know.
Then she went offline. Then
I
that
know,
was it.
never saw her again.
Crazy.
But still remember her, Jacinta.
Wait, no, I think that's a crazy story. Jacinta, if you're watching this, if you're listening, Jessie still thinks about you.
Jacinta, man.
Yeah.
Zen, would you say is the first time social media had like a negative effect on you?
Damn. Do you know what? I think it affected the way I saw like beauty standards and stuff like that. Because on social media, like on Instagram, like the For You page, you see all the girls like dressing really nice and like dressing the way that you want to look. And I think also when you're a teenager, like you're just trying to figure out yourself, like your style, how you view yourself. And so if you're constantly seeing like pictures and images and like stuff of people that you look up to and then you compare yourself like, why don't I look like that? Obviously because you're a teenager, these are grown adults. But as a teenager, you don't think that way. And so I used to like really be self-conscious of like the way I looked. Like that's when I started wearing makeup and stuff. Like I remember like being in such a chokehold with wearing makeup that like I couldn't even go to like the corner shop without wearing something. Like I had to like put on mascara or something. And I genuinely feel like that was because of social media, because of all I was consuming. And obviously that was not healthy. That was when I was about 14, 15 years old, which is actually quite young to be wearing makeup in my opinion. But yeah, I think when you have those things that are so accessible and looking at how other people live their life, you start to compare yourself and be like, why don't I look like them? And then you try to do everything in your power to try and be similar, but then it still isn't enough. That's how I felt. Don't know if you have anything similar, maybe not makeup, but something else.
I had a really big issue with wearing loads of concealer when I was like 13. Just used to wear as much makeup as I could to cover up my face.
Tough.
Mascara every day. Lipstick every day. No, sorry, that was a bad joke. I had a similar thing. I think that when you're young, you almost use your social media to, you know, present yourself and perform to a standard.
Yeah.
And so you look at other people and like compare to a standard. Whereas for me, I felt like I just had to provide a standard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was weird, but like, I remember when I was like 13, I posted like a selfie and it was my first ever photo on Instagram. And someone commented, "You're fit."
What?
That changed it. I was like, wow, attention. This is amazing. I love attention from like girls thinking I'm handsome. So I like went deep into posting really bad selfies.
Selfie boy.
You can let, few of them will come on the screen now and now and now. Hopefully you actually put them on the screen.
And if you're not watching, then you're listening.
And if you're listening,
just don't worry.
Go on YouTube because this will transform your life. But I like remember posting these like selfies, not because I was like trying to compare myself to other people, but more because I just loved the attention. I was like, oh, I want to post this so that people know that I'm handsome, or like know that this or this. And like when you're like 13, I don't know, I don't know, it just went to my head very quickly. But also I remember, if you haven't listened or watched my testimony video last week or a few weeks ago, I talked about how I got into a fight because I kissed someone's girlfriend. And I remember that came about from social media.
Oh, wow.
Because, well, it came about from me kissing his girlfriend. And then I remember like someone in my school who I fancied tagged the boyfriend in my post with a laughing emoji at a selfie I posted.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, they're mocking me. They're mocking me. Like, this guy wants to smoke. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I remember getting like really insecure that people were laughing at my image. And that's what produced a fight, pretty much. Just literally insecurity and comparison from that. So
Wow.
I think it just has it had such a hold on me growing up.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Snapchat. Oh Lord. That's a whole other area. Did you have Snapchat?
I did have Snapchat. I am now off Snapchat, which I feel so happy about, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Because I just had a moment last year where I was on Snapchat. And you know with Snapchat, it's like constant stories. So once you watch one story, it automatically shows you someone else. And then once that's done, it shows you it keeps going. And I just felt like this is so invasive. Like I don't actually really want to know what's going on in your life. But I feel like I have no control over it because I just see it.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, like you feel like you need to post, and then it's like, why does everybody know everything that I'm doing? Like, it just felt too invasive for me, so I got off. But I think when I was younger, I definitely did enjoy that part of Snapchat because it's like you can catch up with your friends, like your friends that you don't see in school or don't like live in the same city as you or your family, and just see what they're doing very easily. But I think
very wholesome.
Yeah, it can be. But then after a while, it's like, okay, now I actually know everything. And then with locations, like now I know where you are. Like, it's just it was too much for me. I don't know if you agree with that, but
I just used it to chat up girls, man.
Fairs.
That was it. 13-year-old, added all the girls in my school. I remember a new girl joined the school and we were meant to be at a house party a week later. And I texted her, I'd really like to kiss you next week at the house party.
What did she say? Did she air it?
No, she I can't remember. She said like, I don't even know. It was like something like,
She was not feeling it.
she was not into it, man.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's funny. And to be honest, it kind of resurfaced even. I became a Christian when I was around, well, not became a Christian. I started walking like a Christian when I was around 14, properly. And it still kind of trickled into that Christian journey as like a bit of a struggle, chatting to loads of girls on Snapchat and almost finding still that comfort in other people, and kind of security in how people feel about me and how people rate me or whatever. Do you remember that? Do you remember Snapchat rates?
Rate for rate,
Rate for
like
rate.
for like.
Oh my Lord,
shout
that's
out
a
for
whole
shout
thing.
out, follow for follow, all of that.
And Zen, for you, since becoming a Christian, how has social media affected your life?
I think in both ways. I think positively and negatively, but I'll start with the positive. I think on social media, you're able to see other people that believe or like the same things you do. It's kind of like subgroups. But essentially, if let's say you live in a town and you don't know anybody that's a Christian, you can go on Instagram and then find like a bunch of young people your age posting about Jesus, and it can make you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm not alone. Like, God, there's other people like me. So I think that has also helped me as well, especially when like you kind of feel a bit out of your environment as a Christian, like you're growing in your faith, and then maybe your friends aren't really Christian or like not growing at the same rate, and you can feel maybe a bit stuck. And then I go on social media and I see other people like posting the same verses that I'm reading and stuff, and it's like, okay, cool, God, I feel encouraged. But then on the downside, I remember like I would say maybe a year into like walking out my journey, so maybe when I was about 18, 19, and I would go on social media and see like what other Christian girls are wearing, like what other Christian girls are like, the revelations they're getting from God. I'm like, bro, I'm not getting any of this. Like,
Wow.
Am I even a Christian? Like, am I even walking this thing out the way that I'm supposed to? Because it doesn't look like them. And I think like social media just encourages so much comparison. And like, the Bible says like comparison is the thief of joy. Like we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people, because then we spend so much time looking at them and looking at what they have, and then we look at ourselves and think, oh my gosh, there's something incomplete here.
Wow.
Oh God, you're not doing like what you're doing for them, you're not doing it for me. Then you start questioning God, and it can turn into like a whole rabbit hole, which I felt like I was genuinely going down. So then I had to take like breaks from social media for myself to like clear my thoughts, because information is so accessible to you on social media. Every time you open your phone, every time you open Instagram, like that's information, whether it's a picture or a post, and all that information can get into your head to the point where you don't even have your own thoughts, because you're just thinking the way that your feed is thinking or what you're seeing on your stories. So I had to be like, no, like my walk with Jesus is my walk. Like the revelations God gives me are revelations for me, for my walk. Like what other people are posting might be different because we're different people. And you have to get into like that almost individual mindset to go back to God and be like, okay, God, what are you telling me? But that honestly was so hard to learn, especially when you grow up using social media in your teenage years. Then you become a Christian. Then it's like, okay, cool. Now I have to stop looking at what other people are doing and following like other cultures that I see online, and then now turn away from that and be like, okay, God, what are you telling me? It's hard to like get into that mindset when you've been doing it for so long. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No,
yeah,
it's
it's tough. It was really tough.
Zen, that was an epic point. Just a quick note for listeners, Zen did say it was comparison is the thief of joy, was from the Bible. It was actually a Teddy Roosevelt quote.
Oh yeah, long day.
But still just as relevant and still epic.
Yeah,
So,
cool. But the Bible does talk about
but the Bible does
Joy.
talk about comparison,
Comparison.
a lot, and joy. So, but one of the things it talks about mostly is like identity and idolatry, and like where are you drawing that from?
yes.
And like I think that that's one of the hardest issues with social media. Is like where are you finding your satisfaction? Where are you finding your identity? And like what are you putting above God?
Yeah.
Are you putting, you know, if you're only satisfied when you get X amount of followers or likes, then actually I'd say that God's not at the front of your pedestal or priorities. Even like, how do I word this? Like it's not bad to like getting Instagram engagement. Like we do the way UK. It's like Instagram, it's TikTok. Like it's always a joy when we see things do well, and when we see things do not as well, we go, oh, well, you know, we trust that God's doing something through it. But that joy shouldn't be the thing. The joy should be secondary to we're doing something onto like for God. And through that, we trust that he's working. And then from that, sometimes we get excited when it does well, you know? So that's where I'd say the danger in social media is. I've got quite an interesting relationship with social media. I'm trying to stay off it as much as I can.
Wait, guys, you need to know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, to the point where Jesse he does have an Instagram, but he doesn't have the app. So whenever he goes on Instagram, he goes on his web browser. And I'm like, bro, just get the app. But he's like, no, man, I don't want to get sucked into that hole.
Let's talk about our screen time, hey? What are you on?
Yeah, let's talk about your screen time, because your Safari screen time, if you're using Instagram on Safari, mate.
Yeah, what are you on?
Yeah, that 6 hour screen time was crazy, wasn't
6
it,
hours
Jesse?
in a week. What's your average a day? If you're going to call me out, what am I on? I'm on around 3 hours a day, which is lit. You know, it's all right. It's still 3 hours, but you know. What about you, sir?
I don't remember. I'm not really sure I remember the details.
You know, it's not good to compare. 7.
Thank you.
It's
off camera, we just heard it is her job. So there you go.
It's my job as well.
No, but I agree with you. But I actually wanted to ask.
Sorry,
a question.
not to compare, but we are going to compare and shame.
Not to compare, but 7. Crazy. But I actually wanted to ask a question about that, about like trying to regulate your social media, or like trying not to idolize things. Like if there was somebody listening to the podcast that was like, actually, I do kind of feel like I compare myself to other people too much, or actually every time I post, I really look at the comments or look at the likes. Like what advice would you give them to help them not struggle with that? What would you say?
I don't think it's specifically bad to care about social media and to care about comments and to care about like your Instagram. But what I think is bad is if that consumes 8 hours of your day,
right,
and the Lord consumes 10 minutes. That's where it's like, oh, it feels like there's a wrong balance here. And for me, I noticed that as a theme. Like I could spend 40 minutes on Instagram in a heartbeat and not even think about it. And then it like would take a lot of initiative and a lot of active decision making to spend 20 minutes with God.
Yeah.
And it would feel long. And it's like, one thing I'd say is like, be aware of what your brain is wired to like do, and also receive. Another thing that like I think isn't super helpful is what you're consuming becomes normal in your life. And so like if you're consuming loads and loads of content all the time, and say like you've got loads of non-Christian friends and you're following them to maintain relationship, but they post some like horrible photos of them getting drunk and drinking and smoke, or like bikini pictures, or like them half naked snogging guys or something. What you're consuming, you're then thinking is normal. And actually there's something about stepping out and like reflecting on your own biblical worldview, reflecting on how you view life. Because then when you look in and you see like loads of people like indulging in sin, it affects you.
Right.
Whereas I see so many guys, this isn't what you asked, but I'm going to go on a little rant. I see so many guys who are like godly men who follow hundreds of girls who post bikini pics, and they think it's normal and they don't get affected by it because they're desensitized to it. And I think we have to reclaim our sensitivity as Christians, because if you're going through and you're thinking like, oh, it's normal for a girl to post this, oh, it's normal for people to be at a party and getting drunk, actually you're almost like accepting it and allowing it, rather than getting like a little brokenhearted for it and wanting to reach out and like protect, and ultimately see your friends like going in this as like, oh man, they're headed for death. But sin is death, and like we need to help like awaken this. And so I'd say the more you consume of anything, the more you like become comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so the more you consume of God, the more bitter. I talked about this on the last podcast. I'm almost quoting the podcast clip. But the more you consume of God, the more bitter and like tasteless the world does get.
Yeah.
And the more you feel like scared when you see something dark. Like it's not a bad thing to be afraid of the dark, and like it's not a bad thing to be like jolted when you see something sinful.
True.
It's the bad thing when you like just so normalized to it. Same for watching films, horror films. You know, if you're watching like demonic things all the time and something's not going wrong in your spirit, you need to look at where your time's going, because you might need to spend more time with Jesus.
Agreed. I think also what you're saying about like what you see, you give attention to, and then what you value that more, like you give your attention to the things that you value. And I think with social media, we can often value it so much that that's the only thing we want to be on. Even in your downtime, like if you're at school, if you're at work, like on your lunch break, you go on social media. Why? Because that's what you value. Whereas you could actually just read the Bible. Like I don't want to sound so Christian-y, but it's really that simple. Like you could just read the Bible. Even for me, like waking up in the morning, bro, it's so easy to just go on your phone, turn off your alarm and go straight on Instagram or go straight on Facebook or whatever, or TikTok. But now I'm like, no, in fact, I'm not even going to go on that. I'm going to open the Bible app straight away and just be in God's word. Like I want my first thoughts to be about Jesus, because what you focus on in the morning, for me, I believe it sets up your whole day. Like what you see in the morning will set you up. If you wake up and you see positive affirmations from God about how like you're fearfully, wonderfully made and all these things, then you'll go through the day and you won't feel like insecure, or like those feelings, they won't come up as much. Like the more you get into God's word, the more those feelings will diminish and he will transform you. But the more you wake up and the first thing you see is like the person that has a bigger house than you, or the person that's in a relationship and you know that's the desire that you have, then the more those feelings will like be more apparent in your life and they'll feed on your spirit and they'll weigh you down. So for me, I'm like, just practically, bro, get in that Bible, like get off social media when you wake up, get in that Bible. Before you go to bed, get in that Bible. Like if you struggle at night and you have dreams about self-comparison, what are you looking at before you close your eyes? If you're looking at social media, get in your Bible. Like I think it can just be as simple as that.
And the truth is, there is beauty in everything, and God is like working through almost every, like, well, no, he is working through everything.
Amen.
And so like, you can argue, yes, there is good things on social media. You see all this like Bible verses, Christian content creating. It's like a massive thing.
Even people helping
we're
others.
Christian content creators.
Literally.
It's like, I'd like to think we're a good God-given thing, but it's, you know, it's like a teardrop in an ocean of awful things.
Yeah.
And like, I just think of the Bible, and I think of the verse that just comes to mind, which says in the Psalms, I will not set my eyes before anything that is worthless. And I think like we are living like, well, such an age where we see everything. We see everything.
Literally.
And we know like more than we were ever designed to know.
Whether we want to or not.
No. And like, there is actually a call for us as Christians to actively choose to set our eyes before things that are worth filled, set our eyes upon things that are worthy, are glory filled, rather than worthless.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Mate, that was so good.
I'm going to have to pause and blow my nose because I've got a cold. Be right back.
How's your nose, Jesse?
Free. You know when you blow your nose and it like your brain squeaks? Have you ever had that before?
So,
where you blow your nose so much and like it goes up to your brain and it like squeaks.
So anyways, we're going to go to... We're going to go to Instagram.
You asked.
I mean, I don't know about your brain squeaking, but what I do know is that you guys have asked us questions about social media. Ironically, we're going to go to social media to get your questions about social media. Are you ready, Jesse?
I think so. I hope so.
Okay, let's go. First question, what is your opinion on social media detoxing? Which we kind of talked about, but we can go into it.
I think I know we already talked about it, but like recognize your priorities in life. And if social media is at the top of that, maybe you need to rejig that and put God on top.
Yep.
Recognize what's consuming most of your time, your thoughts, everything. If it is social media, then maybe it is time to step out and just like look in for a bit and just see what it does. Sometimes detox is really helpful for some. Sometimes it's really unhelpful because it's like you step out for a week and then you come back and you just consume it all the time. Like this is a bit of, but like when you fast, you don't fast for a day just to eat an abundance of a buffet the next day. You fast because you want to glorify God and you want to recenter your heart towards God. And then the next day you just continue in life. It's not an excuse to then be gluttonous.
Yeah.
And it's the same with social media. Sometimes it's really helpful But if it's actually producing more of a hunger for social media, maybe don't detox, but like just read your word more.
Agreed. I have detox from social media. I remember last month I did a 10-day detox and I felt so free. I was like, I don't even need my phone. It was actually not just social media, it was my phone. So I don't even need this thing. And then I came back to using it and I was like, whoa, this feels so weird. Like, what is this device? And then not long after, I got back into my social media brain again. And so I think when you're actually detoxing, like try and maintain what you learn from your detox or from your fast so that you don't just almost go from fasting to then there was no transformation. Like try and maintain the things that the revelations God gives you and not just go back. So that's what I would say. Next question. Actually, Jesse, do you want to pick a question?
I haven't read any of these, so this could be so rogue.
Come on.
The wonderful Nozzy has sent in a question saying, how do I steward my platform well without feeding into the toxicity of social media?
I had a sermon at church about social media or just platforms in general, which I thought was really good. So the pastor talks about platforms and pillars. And he said that platforms elevate things, but pillars are actually their source of strength and you lean on pillars. And when you look at your social media platform, like, are you elevating yourself or are you being a beacon that people can lean on and find strength in God? Hella paraphrased, but I think it was a really good point. Like, what is the point of your social media? What is your why? Is it to uplift your thoughts, your opinions, like whatever you have to say, or is it to actually be a pillar that people can lean on and learn more about God and learn more about His character? So just a little thought.
Another question which I find interesting: do you believe the positive aspects of social media outweigh the negatives?
I think they can. That's not me just being idealistic, but I think they can. I think for me, yeah, I know the negative effects of social media, but I think the fact that we're more connected than ever before, the fact that like I can figure out what my friends are doing around the world, or even just learning about the church. Like I've got friends in different countries and seeing like what the church looks like in Australia versus the US from the UK is actually so encouraging to see like what Christians are doing around the world. I think it can really, really encourage your faith, especially if you're, like I said before, in like a remote place where you might be the only Christian in your school or the only Christian like in your town, and then you see things happening around the world. It's really inspiring. So I think it actually can outweigh the negative, but that's if you choose to focus more on the positive than the negative.
I think with social media, you do have to recognize that God is moving through social media, but so is the enemy. Actually, it's one of the biggest tools that the enemy uses to bring people to their lowest and to bring people away from God. And so the truth, like you can meet with God through social media. You can be discipled through social media. We have access to the most biblical knowledge we've ever had before. We can listen from some of the greatest preachers in the world in a minute snippet without having to travel thousands of miles. You know, the truth is, like you can be discipled well, but also you can be discipled very poorly. When you look to thirst traps as an example of how to live, when you look at people finding love in themselves and like finding the truth of their heart and like expressing their all that kind of thing, that is like a negative influence. What does the Bible say? That's what you really need to look at. And a lot of people can also find community in social media, because Christian community can be hard to come by sometimes, and that's not specifically bad. Some people might be in like a remote village and there's no Christians in the town, and like, you know, you're stuck. So the only way you can have Christian brothers and sisters is via social media. But the Bible's very like set on the fact that we do need physical brothers in Christ or sisters in Christ to hang out with. Because I mean, even communication is like the highest percentage of how communication is received is via body language.
Yeah.
And sure, you can be vulnerable over text. Sure, you can open up and articulate well, but actually they won't get the full message unless they see you in person. And one of our producers pointed out this scripture earlier in Hebrews 10, when it talks about how we draw near to the throne room and we draw near to God and we're washed, and like basically talking about salvation and how we have this inheritance to meet with God. But afterwards, he says, let us then hold fast to the confession of our hope without wearying, for he who's promised is faithful, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. So one, there is a stirring of each other. We do need to like encourage each other. But it says not neglecting to meet each other, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. It's so explicit. Like, although it is hard to find community, seek after it, like pursue it, because it says it in the Bible, do not neglect it.
That's so good. Don't neglect the gathering of the saints. Like, we need each other, man.
Exactly,
we
man.
need community. The disciples had each other. Jesus had community. Like, what makes you think you don't need it if God himself was around people? Like, come on now. Wow, Jesse, thanks so much for chatting about social media. I thought that was really, really helpful. And I actually wish when I was younger I had like a podcast like this. Yeah, in fact, I wish you weren't influencing my life.
No, I'm joking.
to chat to me
Sorry,
about
that's a
social
bad
media.
joke. Let's
No,
redo
but
that.
for real, I wish I had like a podcast or a voice like this that I can listen to when I was growing in my faith as a Christian, man, because this is so encouraging. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you're listening, I hope you took something from this, and we will be back with another episode of The Way Podcast, so see you soon.
See you soon.
Follow our Instagram, follow our TikTok, follow our YouTube, subscribe,
After the detox.
After you've detoxed, maybe watch those reels on your feed, and
We
engage
are
with
the good
social media.
light within the dark world of social media. So check us out.
You don't have to include that, by the way.